So I thought it would be fun to try and Kibbe-Type a few cartoon characters. So with a human person, IRL, you would look at their facial structure, their bone structure, the way their flesh sits on the body. But with a cartoon character, you want to look at not just their figure and their facial structure, but also their coloration and their main outfit, because all of that is part of the character design. Unlike with people who change their clothes and can change their hair, I guess a cartoon character could, but usually it's just for like one episode or to demonstrate a very big character change. So all of these things we will have a part of, we will look at. I know English. Okay, so first let's look at Shaggy. So what do we notice about Shaggy? First, let's look at his face. As we can see, there are quite blunt, roundy sorts of lines, but it's also quite elongated. He has a very open face, very friendly face. As for his figure, he's obviously very tall, as you can see in this picture of him with the rest of the gang, as they're called. But at the same time, he's got some width, which you might be like, what on earth are you talking about? But hear me out. Look at how his arms hang quite far away from his sides. You can see that his skeleton has some width to it. So for that reason, I would say he's a flamboyant natural. Next, I want to look at Daphne. Boop, there she is. So, what do we notice about her? She's got quite an hourglass figure, but it's very trim. Her hands and feet are quite small, but quite dainty and sort of like slender. Her facial structure as well, she doesn't have very much in the way of like a puppy face. It's quite trim, the bones are very defined, the nose is very small but elegant, not buttony, I wouldn't say. Her eyes are quite upturned, her lips are very well shaped, but they're not lush, so I would say that she is a theatrical romantic. Next we have Fred. Fred has that same sort of blunt openness as Shaggy, but he doesn't read as long. He reads more wide, more soft. His body as well, it's quite wide. If you squint real hard and you take out your magnifying glass and you look at these little pictures on the bottom, you'll be able to see that his torso is made up of what are those called? Parentheses, sort of. They're round but wide, and his body is shaped sort of like an inverted triangle. So he's got that width there, but it's also all quite rounded. So I think he is a soft natural. Next, let's look at Velma. So as you can see, she's pretty short, not only in this picture, but in this picture here, amongst all of her friends, she's the shortest one. Also, if you've ever seen the cartoon, you know her limbs are pretty short. She's got some breadth in her shoulders, quite curvy, got quite a fleshy face, so I would call her a soft gamine. Now to a different cartoon, let's look at Professor. Now Professor is made up of straight lines and angles, all lines all the time. He's basically a collection of various points. He's made up of squares and rectangles and triangles. Even his eyes are kind of pointed. They're not circles, they are half circles, so you still have those angles at the corners. Even like his hand is a rectangle, his pipe comes to a point. His color pattern is very stark, very contrasted, black and white. So he is a dramatic. I think if someone were to draw a cartoon representation of a dramatic, it would definitely be Professor. So there you go. Miss Bellum is known for being very, very curvy. She has very lush, rounded lines throughout her body. From the shoulder line to the bust and hip line and waistline, her legs are very, very large. Not large, but they're very sweeping shapes. Even her hair is quite big and round. There's no angles in there whatsoever. That said, I don't think she's a romantic. I think she's a soft dramatic. Simply because she's always given the impression of being very tall. Obviously because you don't see her face. At least that's how I always interpreted her. The impression they were trying to give could have been that no one's paying attention to her face. But whenever I was a kid and I watched it, I always thought that she just seemed really, really tall because no one could see her face. I guess also because, you know, in comparison to the mayor, she was just super duper tall to me. So I think she is soft dramatic. Not to mention, she's very much in charge of running the town. So yes, I think she's a soft dramatic. Now, the mayor has to be a soft comedian. He was one of those characters that I looked at and I went, I don't have a reasoning, really. He's just a soft comedian. I guess I do have a reason. He's pretty rounded. He's got quite a large, roundy nose, big round monocle that is his eye because he's never gonna take it off. His style is very funky fresh, very mixy-matchy. Yeah, he's a soft comedian. There's nothing else on the planet that he could be, I don't think. I put Sedusa and him on the same page because I think they're both the same type. So if we can compare Sedusa to Miss Bellum, I almost said Medusa. If we can compare Sedusa to Miss Bellum, we see that in the places where it was completely round, swooping lines for Miss Bellum, there are some sort of points for Sedusa. You see at the shoulder line, at the bust line, at the elbows, the wrist, the hips, the chin, slightly roundy point. Even the hair, it's got some points. Whereas with Miss Bellum, we see all round, all big sweepy rounds here. So I think Sedusa is a theatrical romantic. She's still very, very round and feminine and curvy, but there is an underlying sharpness. Not to mention, she's literally a femme fatale. Now him has these same sorts of roundy points, rounds that go to a point as Sedusa. You can see in the top of his ear. I'm pointing as if anyone can see me point. At the top of his ear, where his nose is, his moon chin, his knee, his feet, very small, very pointed, his crab claw, his elbows, everything is, the lines are pretty like Play-Doh-y, like round. If I were to draw it, I wouldn't want to stop at any angle, but I would kind of make a little bit of a roundy angle. I don't know, I can't really explain it. It makes sense in my head, but he is a theatrical romantic, I think. I had to include Hacker because I used to love this show when I was a kid, and he was my favorite character. I don't know how popular this show is, especially compared to like Scooby-Doo and Powerpuff Girls, because I think everyone knows them, but I love this show. I had a bit of trouble with, because he's got the same sort of wide roundness as Fred did, but he has tiny little baby legs. Because of course he's supposed to be quite funny. He's got small hands and feet. He's got just a squarish underbite of a chin, sort of a pointy, swoopy, roundy nose, oval eyes, the smallest head. He's very, very bizarre shaped character. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with a romantic, or maybe a theatrical romantic. But the overall impression I get from him is roundness and width, because he is basically like 90% torso. I think I'm going to call him a romantic. It could also be that he looks like he really wants to be Elvis. That's making me say that. I don't know. Next we have the one and only Betty Boop. So for this character, I was torn between two types, either the soft comedian or the romantic, because she's got quite small, round, chubby, curvy sorts of impression, you know, large round eyes, small lips, little baby nose, but she's got some breadth to her, what would be her jawline. Of course, that's just because she was a dog in earlier versions of the cartoon. You could also say that it's her cheek flesh, but to me it gives the impression, like the quite large head on the small body gives the impression of a more substantial skull, you know? So I think I'm gonna go with soft gamine. Now that could also be because she's the quintessential flapper, so, you know, I might be a little bit biased. But you know what, I never said I wasn't biased, and maybe you shouldn't listen to the opinions of strangers. So Betty Cooper gives the impression of, you know, the girl next door, but not in the natural kind of way, in the 1950s girl next door kind of a way. Very clean, very smart, very nice girl, you know. So I think she's a soft classic, especially if I look at her face. It's very, very soft, very just plain, but not plain in a bad way. I mean even. For a cartoon character, she's not very cartoonish. That makes any sense. That's her outfit and her hairstyle. And just the way her whole body is drawn, it makes me think soft classic. So Veronica Lodge, I think I'm going to go with dramatic classic. I did kind of toy around with theatrical romantic, but really what I see is a pretty balanced figure. A slight sharpness at the shoulders, but not enough to call them really sharp. Just very, very balanced, especially if you see in the face. Her facial structure, the way it's drawn, is very similar to Betty Cooper, obviously. Same cartoon, same drawing style, but there are some differences in the eyes, and the nose, and the lips. There's a bit more sharpness there as compared to Betty Cooper. And also the coloring. Betty Cooper's coloring is very, soft, very, just kind of gentle, I suppose. Because there's not really a lot of contrast there, whereas with Veronica Lodge, there's a lot of contrast, and even in the skin tone and the dress color, it's very dramatic coloring, very glamorous. So I think I'm going to go with a dramatic classic. So as I was editing, I realized that I had completely forgotten one of my favorite cartoons from whenever I was a kid, Jackie Chan Adventures. So right off the bat, I think Uncle is a flamboyant gamine. He's very narrow, kind of short-ish, but still he's got long limbs, and he's got, more of a rugged face than I would say for a pure gamine or a soft gamine. So I think he's a flamboyant gamine. Jackie Chan in the cartoon, mind I'm talking about the cartoon and not the real person, I think maybe a soft natural. He's got wide, blunt, but open, soft sorts of lines in his face and his facial features, and also in his figure. It's just not as ridiculous as with Fred, because the drawing style is a little bit more realistic. Also, his demeanor in the cartoon is very friendly and open and gentle, even though he is beating people up. I'm not sure about Toru. I already have a hard time Kibbe-Typing quite large people, which I'm trying to get better at, but it's difficult. That said, Toru isn't just large. Toru is 7 feet tall, so I don't know what type he is. He's whatever type Andre the Giant is. That's what I've decided. Now that's the end. And next time, I think I want to try to Kibbe-type some puppets, from Fraggle Rock and the Muppets. I would love to know whether you agree or disagree with my Kibbe-typing of these characters, and what other cartoon characters you Kibbe-typed, because we've all done it. Okay, ta-ta for now.